this is Sumedha and today I am going to teach you everything about Babri Masjid case, that is Ram Mandir case, and everything which is related, all the small instances, the political events, the political speeches, and then the law changes and everything possibly that is related with the Babri Masjid case. So let's get started with this interesting session along with what we have for Article 25, that is right to religion in India. So the first chapter that we are going to learn about is history. Okay, so what happened in the history? If you want to know the history of Babri Masjid, everything that is regarding it with its construction, so you have to visit back 500 years ago what happened. Okay, so what happened before 500 years back? And yes, we are fighting for something which happened 500 years back. I know that's stupid, but that's how it works. Okay, so coming back to the topic, which says that 500 years ago, so there was Lodhi dynasty that time in India, and the last king of Lodhi dynasty was, anyone knows? Yes, Ibrahim Lodhi. Ibrahim Lodhi was the one who was the last emperor. And why he was last emperor? Because he was succeeded. He was killed by the first Mughal emperor Babur, and that's why Babur is also called as the founder of Mughal dynasty. Okay, so this is about the small history. Now, who constructed this Babri Masjid? So the commander of Babur, who was Mir Baqi at that time. So Mir Baqi actually constructed Babri Masjid, okay, and he constructed it in the year 1528. Yes, that's the year 1528 when the Babri Masjid was constructed. So the construction has happened. Then what went wrong? Because as I told you that it was constructed in 1528. What went wrong here is just a belief. Okay, so what is wrong with the belief? So here the whole case, the whole destruction, the whole new construction is based on belief. Okay, so the locals of this area where this masjid has been constructed, mosque has been constructed, okay, they had the belief that it wasn't just built on a plain land, but earlier there was a Hindu temple and Babur destructed that Hindu temple, and that's how he constructed over the same land, and that's why the place belongs to Hindu. Give it to Hindus. But we have a concrete evidence that 1528, from 1528 Muslims have been praying there. There was a mosque which was built, and we have all the history, but this is how the belief in this case is running. That too, that belief was from the locals of that area, and we do not have any evidence about it. So how it started? Okay, so who was this first group who started with all these fights? So this all started in the era of Britishers. Okay, so and particularly if I have to quote the year, it started between 1853 and between 1859. Okay, so during this period, the first fights, riots between Hindu and Muslim started over that title of that land, because Hindus were saying that earlier there was a temple and that's why that land originally belongs to Hindus, and Muslims were saying that there is no sufficient proof that there was a temple, but doesn't matter because from 1528 we have been praying here, and the Hindus are also praying, so we do not have any problem with that, just that we should be allowed to pray there peacefully. Okay, but because of these riots, Britishers have to step in, and they decided that, and it was a very wise decision because it was based on the evidences that we had, and they said that because Muslims have been praying there from 1528, that is 400 years, so we cannot take away that right to pray from Muslims, and they have been praying into the inner yard. So if you have seen the mosque's construction, how it was before its demolition, there were three main domes, okay, and the main dome always which will be a bigger one, okay, under that the Muslims used to pray. And that's why the main portion, okay, the inner yard will be going to Muslims for praying. And because Sita Rasoi and Ram Chabutra lies outside this main construction, so they will be having that place to pray, which is the outer yard of the mosque, okay. So this was a very wise decision which was given by Britishers, and later on, as per the decision, they started applying it. So Muslims were peacefully praying inside the mosque and Hindus were praying outside the mosque, and they even fenced it very properly. So Britishers even fenced it, okay. But then when the problem arose, it all started in 1885. So 1885 is the year where this case first went to the court. Okay, so who was this person who took this case to court? So there was this Mahant whose name was Mahant Raghuveer Das. Okay, so Mahant Raghuveer Das is the person who for the first time in 1885 took this case to the court, saying that the Hindus needed permission now because we have been praying outside, so there is a need of shelter which should be granted by court. Okay, so this is how it went to court for the first time. So coming back to 19th century, okay, so what happened in this era? Obviously we got independence, right? But we got the independence by partitioning Pakistan and India, right? So that time, that bitterness somehow came in between these two communities, because both the communities suffered huge loss because of this partition. So this partition didn't went like smoothly, but there was so much violence, murders, rapes, etc, 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 and that's why still we feel that bitterness between these two communities. So coming back to the topic, in 1947 we got the independence, but this whole Babri Masjid scenario came into picture in 1949. Okay, so 1949, what happened in 1949? So the day which everyone remembers is 23rd of December 1949. What happened on 23rd December 1949? If you Google this date, what happened, you will get so many articles, okay, about it, that this is the day that changed Ayodhya's history. This is the day which led first stone for the foundation of Ram Mandir, so on and so forth. But again, if you want to go in details, okay, and see what actually happened on this day, there is even a book by Harper Collins, Ayodhya, The Dark Night. So give it a read, okay. So coming back to the circumstances and to the incident that happened on 23rd of December 1949. So 1949, this day which I'm talking about, there was this conspiracy which was coming into picture. And if I have to quote their names, the names have been given as, the first one was Abhiram, the second one was Mahant Ram Chandra Das, okay, and the third one was Vrindavan Das. Okay, so these three people, they entered the mosque, and obviously because there must be some caretaker or some people, right, how they can just enter and get into the main dome. So yes, there was this person who was present at that time and who was the caretaker of the inner yard. So his name was Ismail, Muhammad Ismail, and he was beaten up by these three people, and which led him flee from that place. Okay, and then these three people started waiting for the dawn, and as soon as the dawn happened and they made this guy flee, they installed Lord Ram Lalla's statue in the main dome. Okay, and someone should be there to give it a voice, right? Because just these three people cannot say that out of nowhere Ram Lalla appeared. So this was why I'm saying it was a well planned thing, because the press was already ready with the pamphlets and with the print, okay, that something unusual happened and one divine light was there in the main dome, and out of nowhere Ram Lalla appeared in the main dome. And why only he appeared in the main dome and why not outside? Because that is the place where he has been born. So that's how the whole Ram Janmabhoomi thing came into picture, and that's why this is that day which led to the construction of Ram Mandir, but unfortunately for the destruction of Babri Masjid. So the people who were at the praise, they were from All India Hindu Mahasabha, okay, and that's why it was hard for the people to deny the fact which the Hindu Mahasabha was saying. Okay, so this is how then the next day Ayodhya woke up with the cries and with the prints and pamphlets that something unusual, magical and divine happened into the main dome of Babri Masjid, because Ram Lalla himself appeared into that. Why? Because it is his Ram Janmabhoomi. So because they haven't established the grown up Ram, I will say, the Murti which was established there, it was the idol of the baby Ram, and that's why Ram Janmabhoomi and Ram Lalla Naam was given. Okay, so this is how the whole Ram Lalla thing came into picture. As soon as it came out with the praise that, you know, the Ram Lalla has been appeared, so Hindus started going there in a large amount and they started praying over there to that idol which was placed there. Okay, so obviously it will create a tension between Hindus and Muslims, because till now the situation was that both the communities were praying peacefully on that area, but now because it has been declared and overall the press that it is saying that this is the place which belongs to Hindus, because of Ram Janmabhoomi, now it has become a difficult phase for Muslims. So obviously because now the Hindus are also going there, Muslims are also do not want to leave that place because that is the only place for their praying. So this clashes started happening, and again there were riots and violence all over the country. So to deal with this, what government did is government sealed the whole disputed area, okay, area of that of Babri Masjid, and the place was closed down for Hindus as well as Muslims, which was a wise decision. Okay, so this is what happened, and this was the first time again then the Babri Masjid was closed for both the communities, so that no one is going there and we are not giving any reason for the people to fight about the place of prayer. Okay, but then obviously, so are there not mandirs and masjids are apart from Babri Masjid? But because this was a disputed area, sorry, so people want to go there only and they want to pray there only. I seriously do not understand this. But then there was so many cases, civil suits which was filed in the court that the place should be open for praying. So Hindus were saying the place should be open for Hindus for praying, and the Muslims were saying that the place should be open for Muslims to pray. Okay, so this whole again the era of dispute between Hindu and Muslim over Babri Masjid again started. Then if I have to say about the cases, the main cases which were filed during this era, the first one was filed in 1950. So this case was again filed by Mahant Ramchandra Das, and he wanted that place to be declared as a Hindu place and given it for Hindus only. Okay, so this was the first case, and later on, as everyone knows that there are three important parties which were part of this dispute. The first one was Nirmohi Akhara, the second one was Ram Lalla Virajman, and the third one was Sunni Sunni Waqf Board. Okay, so from the name itself you can guess that yes, Sunni Waqf was the Muslim communities board and the other two were the Hindu community board, and they were saying the same thing. The demands of this Muslim groups were that this area should be given it to Hindus, because earlier before this masjid also there was a temple, Hindu temple, and from 1949 because the Ram Lalla has appeared there, so obviously that place should be coming to no one but Hindus. Whereas the Sunni Waqf Board has a demand that we agree that the Hindus were praying into this place for a long time and we do not have any objection for that. So the outer area which has Ram Chabutra and Sita Rasoi and where the Hindus have been praying, they can continue to do so. What we want is just we should have even our right of praying inside the dome which has been there from 1528. So simple demand. So while all these cases were pending in front of different courts for the decision of Babri Masjid disputed area, 1986 proved a landmark year because it gave a turn to this whole case. Now how? So 1986, to understand the whole political situation, that time Rajiv Gandhi was the Prime Minister of India. And that particular year, there was this landmark judgment came from Supreme Court for Shah Banu case. Now, as the name suggests, and if you have known the case of Shah Banu, so the decision which was given by Supreme Court, it was widely criticized by Muslim community. And because it was widely criticized, Rajiv Gandhi was the one who was ultimately criticized for going against the Muslim communities, you can say the sentiments, right? But then Rajiv Gandhi was one person who couldn't take that criticism, and then he started making a law which will reverse the decision of Supreme Court. Okay, so now because Rajiv Gandhi was involved in making this law for the Muslim community, now Hindus got hurt that why Rajiv Gandhi is trying so hard to be in the good books of Muslims. Okay, and now Rajiv Gandhi was criticized by the Hindu community that why he is favoring so much Muslims. Okay, because now Rajiv Gandhi has already done something for Muslims, now he wanted to prove to the Hindu community that not only Muslims but I would be doing something for Hindus as well. Okay, and that's the whole picture behind this decision, because the how the court system works, right? You would have heard कि अगर आप बहुत समझदार हो तो आपने कोर्ट में कभी जाना नहीं चाहिए, and that is so true because the number of years it will take in the court, everyone knows the story and the jokes about it, so I'll not talk much about it. So the same thing happened here, but in this case, as soon as the decision came, within 40 minutes, which is the shortest span, the whole Babri Masjid's gate were open for Hindus for prayers. Within 40 minutes. And not only this, there was this telecast. Okay, so the whole telecast was sponsored on Doordarshan, and the way it was shown that how the Babri Masjid has been open for Hindus and now Hindus can go, and you can see that telecast on YouTube or Google, it is available, I'm sure. So how it was portrayed, the whole situation, so it was a very clear picture that this was all planned by the government. And that's why Muslim community was deeply hurt, and this was the decision. Babri Masjid Action Committee was formed mainly after the decision that came from Faizabad District Court. So coming back to 1990 was the year where Vishwa Hindu Parishad made a grand entry, and they declared the committee which was named as Ram Mandir Nirman Committee. And under the same banner, the eminent minister Lal Krishna Advani, he organized and declared a Rath Yatra starting from Somnath, which is in Gujarat, till Ayodhya. But because the consequences were very clear that if the eminent minister himself is carrying out a yatra for the Nirman of Ram Mandir, the violence was pretty clear, and that is what happened all over India. Riots and violence started, and hence something unusual that happened in that year, which is 1990, that a minister, BJP minister, got arrested during that Rath Yatra in Bihar. Now, how did that happen? Okay, so let's discuss that. Because now in 1990, the Prime Minister is none other than Vishwanath Pratap Singh. Now, VP Singh's government, you have to understand the background of VP Singh. So, VP Singh was working under the Council of Ministers of Rajiv Gandhi, but when Rajiv Gandhi was criticized for Bofors scandal, that time he gave Vishwa Pratap Nath Singh, he gave his resignation from his ministry, which was Ministry of Finance and Defense, which was a very important ministry. He gave his resignation and he formed his own party, which was Janata Dal. Now, because Janata Dal was a newly born party, and obviously it needed a support to win election at that time. Okay, but because he was the main minister who came out from the Congress, so BJP through National Front provided that support to VP Singh's Janata Dal, and that's how Janata Dal, that is VP Singh, came into power. Okay. But now, because the main support here was from BJP, and once VP Singh came into power, he did two important things which led to destruction of his career, I will say, as a PM. So the first thing was the formation of Mandal Commission, where he was criticized, and the second thing was he was opposing Rath Yatra. Okay, because he knew the consequences that it is, it will create that communal tension in India, and that's why he was opposing it. And once he got arrested, who? Yes, Advani got arrested in Bihar. Obviously, the consequences now was very clear that VP Singh has to pay for it, because how can an eminent minister of BJP, a very senior minister of BJP, can get arrested? Who has that much dare to arrest him, right? So that's how then a no confidence vote was asked, and there VP Singh lost the no confidence motion, and that's how he was out of power. So he served only for 343 days, which was from December 89 till 10th of November 1990. So that was about VP Singh. So now coming to 6th of December 1992, which proved the most unfortunate day in the history of India, because 6th of December 1992 is the day when Babri Masjid was demolished by thousands of car sevaks. But what is here important to know, that there were speeches which were given by our eminent ministers on 5th of December 1992. I'll be providing the link to see the actual speeches that were delivered, but let me quote the Prime Minister of India, Atal Bihari Vajpayee's sentence here, which I feel was the one which aggravated the public. Okay, so it goes like this, quotation. Okay, Supreme Court has given us the permission for the car sevaks to do this act. Okay, but what Supreme Court has said is, you cannot do any violence, that is fine, but what you can do is you can do bhajans. Okay, so bhajan cannot be performed by one person. So for bhajan, you need a group of people to perform that bhajan. And again, for doing bhajan, you need a place to sit, right? But there is no place, like for the Babri Masjid he is speaking, right? So Babri Masjid doesn't have any space to sit. So what we have to do is, we have to make the land plain, so that we can sit and we can do bhajans. Okay, so what it is indicating to, for my interpretation and my understanding, it was a clear message that we have to demolish Babri Masjid, then only it will be plain, right? But if you have any other interpretation, by seeing the speech you can make it out. Okay, so that's just my interpretation. Then 6th of December, when this whole incident happened, you can see it on the screen that how unfortunate and how depressing the whole event was. 500 years old Babri Masjid was demolished so cruelly by Kar Sevaks, and the administration didn't take any action because obviously it was a mass game. You cannot fire on people who are there present. For more than 2 lakh people were present there, right? And if you can see the interviews of the people, what happened on that day there was too much violence. It was not about just demolishing the Babri Masjid, but even the houses of Muslims were attacked. Okay, so if you see this interviews, they described it there, and it is so heartbreaking that how they fled away, how the whole Muslim community was so threatened. They were just running all over Ayodhya to just save their lives. And by the evening, they just, when they got to one place, and then that time they got to know that okay, he was murdered, he was killed, and this relative of Muslim got killed, and that relative got raped, and all this kind of cases. Okay, so the consequence, like I have even given an interview in the link where a journalist who was even a Hindu journalist, but she enters to cover the whole incident, but because she showed that much boldness, the Hindu people which were present in the temple mosque, they thought that she must be a Muslim only, and she was also sexually assaulted. So all these cases, there are like innumerable cases of violence which happened on 6th of December 1992. So it was clear that now some action which is much more needed to deal with the whole thing. And that time again in 1992, as we know little history about it, that by now Narasimha Rao has come into power because there was an assassination of Rajiv Gandhi, and because Narasimha Rao was the most senior minister in the council, he was given that prime ministership, and that's how he even got this Ayodhya issue inherently. Okay, so that was one thing. And now when the whole issue was in question, so there was this committee which was set up by the government called Librahn Committee, and that was appointed mainly to see that who is responsible for this whole Babri Masjid demolition, what happened, and now what we could do. So I feel the resolution or the suggestion that the Librahn Committee came up with under the ministership of Narasimha Rao was very peaceful, okay, because they wanted to have a mandir, a masjid, a library, a museum, and some other places into that disputed land. Okay, so there won't be any confusion, any fight. There will be masjid also, temple also, there will be library also, so that people can read some great books and to clear up all this dirt which is in their mind, and museum and all other things. It would have been a perfect example to set up in front of people to to give a perfect solution for Hindu-Muslim fight. But no, BJP was against it. So they do not wanted this suggestion to come up, because their ultimate demand is nothing doing, because before forming that Muslim mosque earlier there was a Hindu temple, and we want nothing but Ram Mandir. Okay, so this is again, even after so much of drama and demolition and violence, The people who did it, the Kar Sevaks, if you can see their interviews as well, they say they do not have any regret of doing or demolishing or doing any violence on 6th of December 1992, which is very unfortunate because still today no action, no punishment has been given to people who have destructed the 500-year-old Babri Masjid. So what you will do tomorrow, like you will just say that, you know, Taj Mahal was constructed by Shah Jahan and maybe there are some evidences that he cut the hands of people who constructed it, which were Hindus also in that, so we do not want Taj Mahal as well. Can you do that? I mean, we have this huge history where different dynasties ruled in India and we are still taking care of that literature, that culture. But just because it has been built by Muslims, will you just continue to destruct one mosque after the other? That's the question to think here.